Welcome to the About Page formula. Here you will learn a system for creating an About page that isn't just there as a kind of gap filler on your website, but really serves a business purpose. It's about how to make an About page that really serves your business and really serves your website's conversion purpose. We're going to cover the following. Firstly, we're going to talk about why having an About page and the right kind of About page is important for your business. In order to be able to make it an actual business asset, we'll also talk about the 3 questions that any About page must answer as quickly as possible. Otherwise, it's simply failing in its purpose and fails to be an effective About page. We'll also talk about an important principle that you need to keep in mind when designing and optimizing your About page, which is the principle of lead quality versus lead quantity. And finally, we'll look at a recipe that you can follow, the exact steps and the structure that you can follow to create your own About page. Hi, I'm Ed Hutton, co-founder of Beverly Hutton Marketing. My wife Beverly and I set up Beverly Hutton Marketing in 2015. Beverly, also known as the Boss. Beverly has been in sales and marketing for 40 years, and I have been an engineer for a similar time. Both have run our own successful small businesses, and we're passionate about helping startups and small businesses overcome the initial hurdles of growth and protect them from the sharks. In this section, we're going to talk about whether making an optimized About page is worth your time and effort. And we're going to talk about the perspective and the principles we bring into this. So this part is going to help you understand the underlying psychology, and that will help you then use the formula you will learn and be able to apply that to your specific website and brand. So let's get into it. Well, one reason why it's a good idea to pay attention to an About page is that to spend some time on it is quite likely that your website, the About page, is one of the most visited. However, the more important question here is, why do visitors seek out the About page in the first place? Because yes, the About page is well visited, but it's also usually one of the main navigation links, so it's no wonder that it gets a lot of traffic. But then the question is, why do people click on that? What makes people click on the About link in such large numbers? So you want to understand psychology, and the first principle here is to be aware of is how we relate to faceless entities versus people. People we can relate to, right? So if you think of a business or a corporation, it's often like this big face, this entity. And as human beings, we're not wired to relate to or trust in a giant corporation with 10,000 employees. And so before making a business transaction, it is much easier to trust someone we know, someone who has a face, someone we can recognize. We're like, oh yeah, she's my neighbor, she lives on the same street and she runs the florist down the road. This is familiar and trustworthy. And this is one of the reasons why big faceless corporations put so much effort into branding and trying to add some kind of an authentic feeling and personality to what they do. Because for human beings, it's much more natural to transact with and interact with other people. Now, if you have a website and people visit that website and they read the text on the website and they see pictures on the website and so on, but those pictures are not of you, then that also kind of makes it faceless. It turns into a faceless business, and the About page gives your business a face and makes your business more human and relatable. We can think of it as looking for trust signals. When visitors come to your website, they're looking for trust signals. We're asking ourselves, who am I buying from? So if I think that someone comes to our website, maybe your homepage is basically a sales page, here's our service and here's why you should sign up, and so on. Even if everything they see is appealing to them, they think, oh yeah, I need this kind of service, this looks good, the price is right, but who am I buying from? And that's the human factor. The same thing happens if you come to a website and there's no face. There's no human attached to it. You feel like, hold on, who am I buying from? And also, it's not just buying in the sense of a monetary transaction, because we have to decide, can we trust this place? Should we stick around when we ask ourselves, should I subscribe to this newsletter? Should I spend time reading stuff on this blog? Can this be a trusted source? Most visitors for these trust signals in various ways on a website. But one of the most obvious sources of it is to learn who is this from, who's behind this. More specifically, there are three factors that we look for that are trust signals that we can provide on our website. Number one, we have faces. We're looking for human faces, as I just mentioned. Number two, we're looking for values and the mission, or basically a reason to exist. This is very specific for businesses as well, because it's easy to be cynical about business and think, yeah, you just want my money, right? Okay, sure, you say that your service is great and your product is great and it's perfect for me and so on, but you just want my money. How can I trust that? You're not just out to squeeze me for everything I'm worth. How can I be sure that you're not just out to maximize profit? And if I can see that there is a value set or a mission or a cause behind this, tells me, okay, you're doing something other than just trying to maximize profit. That is a trust signal. We want to basically know an origin story. So when we meet a stranger, we ask, where are you from? And because a real person, a trustworthy person, has some kind of origin story, they come from somewhere. They've arrived here in front of us through some reason. And if someone's not willing to disclose anything about their past again, that's something that tells us what this can't be trusted. So these are the signals that we can put up on our website, on the About page. But underlying this is also something we have to be aware of. This is always the question of what's in it for me. So while your About page is the page that is most about you or your business, it's still about the visitor. So the general rule that we build into a website is that the messaging is always about the visitor. We have to make sure that we don't do it like me messaging, because your visitors are wondering, what's in it for me? How can I benefit from this? This is also true on the About page, but to a lesser degree. So the Bio page is the most kind of, let's say, egocentric page you have. But still, we have to keep in mind the visitors interested in these things and wants the trust signal because they're asking or they're wondering what's in it for me. So the conversion focused About page is another factor here. When I talk about the conversion focused About page, I mean three different kinds of conversions we should keep in mind. Number one, the conversion from a visitor to a lead or prospect. So visitor subscriber of a newsletter, for example. Number two, the conversion to customer. So customer to paying customer or client. And number three, the conversion to a fan. And this is important. This is where you become more than just another website that I bought a product from, right? It's where I actually feel like, oh, this website is special. I can align myself with this website somehow. And the only About page is one of the greatest leverage points where that we can make this happen. And because I think this conversion from kind of visitor to fan is important. It's one of the reasons why this About page formula is a bit different from any you might have seen elsewhere or what you might be used to. So that's the best why we're focusing on an About page here and the set of goals that we want to achieve. So let's get into it. This is the structure, and we'll start filling out these building blocks, and we'll start with at the very top, headline and faces. So first of all, a headline. Every page has a headline as the main thing. That should be some big text at the top, and in the headline you want to communicate who you are and what you do as concisely as possible. So it should be more than just your company name. Plus you want to show your face, or the faces of people on your team. If it's not just you and your face, if you're a personal brand, that's important. And one more thing to consider is search. Because when I say that the headline should communicate more than just about company name, then keep in mind that there's a difference between the headline, the title that people see on the page, and the meta title or the SEO title, which is what's listed in search engines such as Google. In search engines results, it makes sense to have a simpler title, or at least to start the title with about company name, whereas on the page itself you can have a proper headline. You can have a multi-line headline that conveys some benefit as well. Right after the headline and faces block, we want to go into differentiation of your unique value proposition. So here the question is, what is unique about what you offer? What's unique about what you do? What's going on your website? And so on. And it's important. So in general, you never want to be generic, because the person coming in usually has a choice. Whatever you do, you're probably not the only person in the world to do it. Whatever your website is about, it's not the only website about that topic. So it's not so much about communicating. This is a website about dog training. It's about communicating. How is this different from, and in what ways is this better than all the other websites about dog training? Or why should you consider becoming a subscriber, a fan, a customer here? What makes us different, and that what needs to come across as soon as possible? You can't expect someone to read through a bunch of generic stuff and then find out what makes you unique later on the page. So think about what is different about what you do. How do you differentiate yourself? And how is this different important? So you should always also explain why not only what is different, but also why it's different and why it matters. So with that, let's look at an exercise you can do to establish this differentiating factor. An interesting exercise is to ask yourself, what are people likely to assume about you based on if they just know what you do and maybe see a picture of you? What are they going to assume, and which of these expectations are wrong? The ones that are wrong, especially the ones that are very wrong, should be addressed because they're potential points of differentiation. Let's take the example of Alice. Now, Alice is a personal trainer, and our assumptions could be she's always been fit, she never has a lazy day, never binge eats, and spends all day in the gym. But what if she was overweight and could not stop eating only a few years ago? Then if she points this out to potential clients who are trying to lose weight, they will think, great, this is someone I can relate to. Alice has done it, so can I. Let's look at some other typical assumptions that people make. If you're a productivity coach, people think you're a workaholic. If you're a yoga instructor, people think you believe in all kinds of spiritual mumbo-jumbo. If you're an accounting software company, this isn't just for people, right? This is also for businesses. People think that everyone working there must be a bunch of stiffs who love to stare at spreadsheets all day. And if you're a marketer, everyone thinks you're a sleazeball, right? And again, if any of these are true, that's fine. It needs no further explanation. But if any of these aren't true, that should be mentioned. That should be highlighted in some way. And this is how you can generate a list of things that are differentiating factors for you. So think of cliches and stereotypes, which is usually kind of a negative thing, but in this case we can use it to our advantage. And if we're aware of the cliches and stereotypes, that might be affecting us in the eyes of our visitors. What if it's not a personal brand? The example that we're all familiar with, that is often used by larger companies, is some kind of mascot that becomes the identifiable brand entity. This is an attempt to add a face and personality to a faceless entity. Sometimes there's no other choice for large businesses. It's not ideal, but it can work. So if you're in a sensitive market where you have to or want to be anonymous, or your customers want to be anonymous in that space, having a mascot that represents the brand and its personality can be a substitute, but it's never as effective as real faces. Alright, so that's the top of the very first things that we need to cover on the page. Next up, we have proof and summary. So you want to ask yourself, okay, what proves your expertise? Proves that you're worth paying attention to. Want to prove that your stuff is good stuff, whether it's paid stuff, or whether it's your blog content, or whatever it is. And this can be anything that shows your history, that gives you credibility. It can be something like awards you've won, it can be authority, proof, things like that. And also you want to provide a quick summary of your story and the purpose of this site. It should just be a quick summary because you want to be able to inform people who are just kind of glancing at the page. Oh, this is a good place for authority, proof and testimonials. So logos and places that you featured, logos of recognizable companies or celebrities that use your service, testimonials from people and so on also provide proof. There's also an important trust signal. So that covers kind of the first part of the page. People can glance through fairly quickly before someone has to scroll down a lot. This should all be on the first 2 screens or so. Here are the 3 questions about any page must answer. Otherwise it fails as an about page. Number 1, who are you? Number 2, what can you do for me? And number 3, how are you different? And this is a way to audit your about page as well. When you've created an about page, or even if you already have one, look at it and look at the top sections and ask yourself, is it clearly communicated? Does it explain who I am and what I can do for my visitor, and how what I do is different? Because of your about page doesn't communicate these things clearly, then it fails as an about page, and you run the risk of having people look at your sales page going, okay, this looks interesting, but who am I buying from? Then they click over to your about page and they scroll through. They read different things, but one of all these questions are not answered. You run the risk of losing them. Well, I just don't know what's going on here. I can't trust them. I'm not sure about this. And they leave. But if you answer these 3 questions clearly at the top without requiring too much effort from the visitor, then your chances of converting them to the next step are much greater. So that's the reason these elements are at the top of this order. What I recommend next is to have links of some of your best links to some of your best content. If you have a blog, you can link to pillar content that's important, something that's like your manifesto or the main strategy you teach, or just things that are like fundamental to what you do that you want people to understand. What is the kind of stuff on my website that people ought to know about, that someone who's my ideal client ought to know about, and what is the kind of stuff on my website that's most likely to turn visitors into fans? That's the kind of stuff you should link to on your website. Now let's address the question you might have, which is, where are all the opt-in forms? So far, no opt-in forms, no lead generation, and that's deliberate. If you look at how to make a marketing about page or conversion optimized about page, what you usually see is a short intro, opt-in form, a bit more text, opt-in form, some more text, opt-in form. Right, get them on your mailing list at all costs. And it isn't necessarily wrong. I'm not saying this is a bad idea, but it is about weighing for your lead generation. lead quality versus lead quantity. Right, if you want lead quantity, you just want to get as many people on your mailing list as possible, and you can and should push for leads early and often. But if you want higher quality but fewer leads, then you want to go for deeper engagement. And on the About page specifically, it makes sense to go for lead quality over lead quantity. Generally, you may want to attract casual visitors to your site with a good opt-in offer. This gives you the opportunity to communicate with them later and perhaps convert. That's the right thing to do, but on the About page, they've already given us a signal of they're interested in deeper engagement. They're already saying, I want to know more. And then we don't want to smack them in the face with a no, forget about it, sign up for my thing instead. Right? On the About page, that's not the ideal choice. So that's why we don't have an opt-in form at the top here, and we don't have any like pop-ups or anything like that either. Linking out to content can work really well for your lead generation if the rest of your website is optimized for it. So I have the following. Let's say from content 1 you are linking to, you have a targeted opt-in to opt-in specific to the category that the post is in. Then there's an opt-in they chose from link number 2. It goes to a piece of content as a content upgrade. So super specific opt-in offer specific for that post, and then content number 3 that might lead directly into a product in some way or push towards that conversion goal. And so this can actually be better for lead generation, because by choosing what to click on, people are segmenting themselves into one of these 3 groups. And that will lead again to higher lead quality, because you are not just throwing everyone into one bucket. It was everyone who signed up on the About page who knows you're sending them down a specific path where they indicate their interest. Then they go on a more specific mailing list. It can be super valuable for your email marketing. So the better the rest of your website is optimized for lead generation and segmentation, the better it works. If you send people to content instead of shoving a lead generation form in their face right away. Remember to send these links to a new tab on your browser, or they will leave your About page and may not return. So this can actually be better for lead generation, because by choosing what to click on, people are segmenting themselves into one of these 3 groups, and that will lead again to higher lead quality, because you are not just throwing everyone into one bucket. If everyone who signed up on your About page knows you're sending them down a specific path where they indicate their interest, and then they go on more specific mailing lists, and can be super valuable for your email marketing. So the better the rest of your website is optimized for lead generation and segmentation, the better it works if you send people to content instead of showing a lead generation form in the right. Alright, the next section here is story. So here is where we want to start to tell your story, your origin story. And this is also where you want to talk about your values and mission and so on. This is the largest block because you are going to go along with the story, and more about that in a moment. So first of all, describe your origin story. How things got to be the way they are, how come you're doing what you're doing, and describe it as it relates to your brand. And then you also want to include your values. You want to include the cause you believe in, the mission, the things that is greater than yourself that you're trying to accomplish, who you are trying to serve, and more, that are the driving factors of your business. Is also the place where in your story you want to show both strength and vulnerability, because it's important to basically show, look, here's the reasons why I'm an expert, or Here are the reasons why it's worth paying attention to me. Here's why we make great products and it's worth becoming a customer, and so on. But also to show vulnerability, because this kind of thing makes our guard go up. If we read the about page about the company and the company is like, well, our stuff is the best and we are the best, and so on. It's like, well, okay, of course you're just saying that to get my money, right? But if we do show a little bit vulnerability, it also shows a bit of humility. It gives it more of a personal feeling, makes it more trustworthy, and makes your showing strength more believable. So also on this topic, if you're thinking, okay, so I'm supposed to write in the bio page and I'm supposed to provide all this proof of my expertise, I'm supposed to say good things about myself or my business in order to win someone over, but I don't want to brag. So that can feel uncomfortable. And the way I see this is that it simply depends on basically where it comes from, the attitude that it comes from. I mean, if you are putting something on your about page, if you're doing the kind of fake it till you make it thing as well, you're specifically trying to portray things to make yourself look good, name dropping, etc., in order to try and impress people. It's kind of the intention behind it. Oh, please trust me, please, you know, look at how cool I am. Basically, that I think that comes across. But if you're simply honestly telling your story and saying, look, here's the journey I went through, here's why I believe what I believe, here's what I try to accomplish, and that context you explain, you provide this kind of proof, then I think it doesn't come across as bragging. Last element here is our call to action. So this is where generally you do lead generation, right? Here's the chance to get people to sign up, people to sign up to your mailing list. Optionally, you can also ask people to follow you on social media. Depending on how important social channels are for you, this is where you would ask for followers. This structure is the way it is because you can think of your customers as different types of visitors. You have like the glancer, who will come to your bio page, just like glance at the above the fold thing and then leave again. We have the skimmer, who will read a bit more. They might see most of the stuff at the top and then skim through some of the rest. And then people keep reading, they become readers, and eventually they might turn into fans from reading your content. And the structure of this about page is designed in such a way that it serves all of these audiences, right? Even people who just give it a quick glance or just skim through will get the signals they need in order for this page to support your business goals and to be a conversion optimized page. But then we're not optimizing the whole thing just for people. We are ready for deeper engagement, who will all get the story, all of this stuff that can turn them into real fans. That is the logic behind this. And further up you put your opt-in forms, the more you're going for lead quantity. You get more leads, no doubt, but there will be lower quality leads. And the further down you put your opt-in forms, the more you get lead quality. And I just have the one opt-in form at the very bottom, but there wouldn't be anything wrong with adding more opt-in forms here. You could definitely maybe add an opt-in form somewhere around the middle. Like I said, it's basically the principle, but that's basically the principle to keep in mind. This is the about page formula, the basic structure that you can go through. Headline and faces at the very top, differentiation, unique value proposition, proof and summary. Get that done as quickly as possible and then link to some of your best content. Then develop your story, your mission, your values, your origin story and so on, and then add a call to action. One of the great benefits of having a structure under formula like this is that it will make it much more efficient for you to create this page now, instead of just going, oh my god, how do I guess I got the right stuff about me? Oh, okay, first headline and faces, next, kind of filling in the blanks in an existing structure like this will make it much faster for you to create an about page. And this is a proven formula if you build an about page following this structure. I'm Ed Hutton from Beverley Hutton Marketing. Thanks so much. I hope you got a lot out of that, but we're not done yet. And the reason we're not done yet is because if I leave you where you are right now, I could actually do more harm than good. And here's what I mean. The training you've just been through, look, that's great, and believe me, it works. But if you go off and you just begin implementing this without a broader plan or a broader overarching strategy, my fear is that you could wind up being just another half-built bridge in your business, and that would be the last thing that I'd want to do. So what I want to do is to teach you this concept called half-built bridges and the way that half-built bridges work. So let's pretend this is you, okay? And you're over here on this mountain, and ultimately where you want to be is where you want to be over here. Right? Your pot of gold is over here. And the reason you attended this training today is because you are looking for a bridge right now. I don't know what the thing is that you want. Could be more business growth, more sales. You know, maybe you just want more. You want to grow your company because you want to buy that nice boat or that car. You want to put your kids through college. I don't know what your pot of gold is, but I know that if you're here today, you don't have it. Okay, and you came here today looking for a bridge that would take you from where you are to where you want to be now. Make no mistake, what I just shared with you is a bridge, but here's my concern. I bet this isn't the first time you've had a new, really cool, novel idea. In fact, I bet there's times where you watch training like this, or you've read blog posts or attended webinars, and you heard something like, for example, there's this new strategy on Facebook advertising that we can implement, you know, these shorter videos. I think it's going to really work. And so you start building that bridge. And then you stop. And the reason that you stopped is because the next week you read about another strategy that somebody else is doing. You know, like so you can forget Facebook. Now really what you want to do is Instagram ads, right? So you cut off this bridge and you start building a new bridge. And the next week it's like, no, we don't want to be doing this at all. Actually, what we need to be focusing on is chatbots, and start building the chatbot bridge. It's again, and it's over and over. And what you're left with at the end of the day is a bunch of half-built bridges. And my guess is, if you're like I am, if you're like a lot of the business owners that I know, this is not a unique experience. This happens time and time and time again. What we have with these half-built bridges is an enormous amount of work, an enormous amount of effort, an enormous amount of investment. But what's a half-built bridge worth? Nothing, because it's not getting us to the other side. So if you're sitting there today and you're frustrated, if you're sitting there today and you're feeling like, you know, I'm just tired, I'm exhausted, yet I'm not seeing the results, I submit to you that the reason that you're tired, the reason that you're exhausted, the reason that you feel like you're flying around a lot is because you're currently building up an inventory of half-built bridges. So here's my message for you today. Now we spend a lot of time talking about some really good stuff. Don't get me wrong, it works, but if it's not fully deployed, it's simply going to be another half-built bridge. So what I want to leave you with is this. It's really simple. I want you to pick one bridge, whether it's what I talked about, whether it's something that you heard about or read a blog post about last week. It doesn't matter. Okay, if the only thing that you take from this training is this, then it will have been worth your time, and I feel like I will have delivered value to you today. Even if everything else we've talked about previously you didn't care about, you didn't understand, and you thought wasn't all that useful, just pick one bridge and finish that one bridge. And then I want you to pick a second bridge, and I want you to finish that again. And then you finish another bridge until you have enough bridges. I know that's going to be the thing. It's not about the tactics, it's about the execution, it's about the implementation, but mostly it's about the strategy. And that's what's going to allow you to cross that bridge and get to the other side. So again, my advice to you is to just pick that one bridge, because I know you come across and you can get what you want when you get to the other side. You'll be able to cross back over and build more bridges, and the bridges are going to be stronger, and you'll be able to get everything that you're after. Now here's why this is important. You see where we identify that there are 73, yes, 73 possible bridges that you could be building. No wonder we get shiny object syndrome, right? So here's our offer that we have for you today. What we would love to do, if you're willing, we have a process that we go through. It takes about 60 to 90 minutes, and it's called the Double Your Sales Discovery Session. And essentially what we do in 60 to 90 minutes, we will begin working on a plan so that you can double your sales in 90 days. Now here's the secret behind the whole thing, that we're really doing this through this sales discovery process, is we're identifying what is the one bridge that you should be building. Okay, we're identifying the first thing that you absolutely positively need to do, not the only thing, but what's the first thing. So if you're sitting there today and you've got shiny object syndrome, and if you're sitting there today and you know that you've got a warehouse full of half-built bridges, and you want to finish something, but you want to make sure you're finishing the right bridge, then we'd love to help you with that. So below this video is a form where you can contact us. We will organize a session for you, no charge, but you will get tremendous value.